Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and welcome back once again, for it is none other than he, to a Rorix 78, and just for once he's in a light tank obviously because it's a Rorix 78, but for once he's not in a Manticore. He is in the Tier 10 Russian bullshit supreme, the T100 light tank. More on why this tank is complete bullshit later. For now, however, before we actually get going with the battle, I just want to take a quick look at the team lists, for Rorix has a lot of competition in this battle. There are 6 light tanks in play here, 3 on each team. Himself in the T100 LT, a Manticore and a Rheinmetall Panzerwagen on his team, an AMX 13-105, another Manticore and another Rheinmetall Panzerwagen on the enemy team. So what does Rorix say when the competition for all of the spotting damage is as intense as it is today here in this random battle on the Pilsen map? He of course says, challenge accepted. You'll note that he is in a platoon. That's Duffy in the DBV-152, but more on that in a moment. For now, however, this is not looking great. The Manticore and the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen are streaking off ahead, although it looks like the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen has given up on spotting. But the Manticore is right up there, shooting up the far side of the tracks and the railway embankment here into those bushes like a rat up a drain pipe. So if there's anything there to be spotted, the Manticore is going to be the one to get it. Of course, if there's anything on the enemy team doing the same thing from the other direction, and there probably is, the Manticore is also, yep, there it is, going to be the first to get it. So, yeah, bad news, but also good news. All good news. The enemy scout doesn't appear to be capable of thinking and breathing at the same time, because the correct response when you run into 2 light tanks backed up by a whole bunch of mediums and tank destroyers is to turn around and diddy-mow back in the direction that you came, rather than standing and making a fight out of it, because yeah, sure, you'll lose a lot of health, but you might not die. Meanwhile, things have gone according to Rorix's evil plan. The Manticore took all of the hits, and that beating doesn't appear to have cooled his passion any. He continues to inch forward from bush to bush. I don't remember seeing the friendly Manticore taking hits from anything other than the enemy scout, which might suggest that there is something else here. Hence Rorix's caution. The suicidal bravery of the Panzerwagen would have suggested that he did have backup, or, you know, he's just not that good. And yes, he did have backup. There's the enemy Manticore. To his credit, it looks like he's trying to get out of there, but, I mean, you know, that's a DBV-152. That's like 700 damage, so, yeah, no. Rorix keeps moving because he did get spotted, and he doesn't know what crew skills the enemy Manticore has. He could still be spotting targets for an extended period of time after he died. So he does the count to 12, and then resumes the spotting position. Something that the friendly Manticore would have been well advised to have done, but he didn't, so it's all more spotting damage for Rorix. So as things settle down here, bear in mind that, I mean, he's just sitting here racking up spotting damage, but he is actually on Discord talking to Duffy in the DBV-152 and plotting and planning what they're going to do next. So while they're doing that, let's quickly just go over all the bullshit that goes into making the T100 LT. Let's first talk about its gun depression. It's difficult to see here while he's sitting in the bushes like this, but this thing actually has 5 degrees of gun depression, which is bad, but it's about 5 degrees more than it should have given the position of the gun and the flatness of the turret. You see, for that gun to go down 5 degrees at the front, the breech has to go up 5 degrees at the back, and it is physically impossible for that to happen, because there just isn't enough space in the turret. Also, let's talk about the armour, because remember, this is supposed to be a light tank, with 180mm of turret armour, and 90mm of frontal hull armour sloped back to give it 210mm of effective frontal hull armour. There are medium tanks that do not have this much armour. There are medium tanks that don't have this much armour. They certainly don't have this thing's speed or camo rating, and they definitely don't have this thing's 2,500 damage per minute. I mean, damage per minute it's kind of a bullshit statistic when you're talking about light tanks, because traditionally they're sitting in bushes and they're not actually firing the gun. Otherwise they get spotted and they get nuked. And while I have just made a big deal about this thing's bullshit armour, because it is bullshit, you do have to take it into perspective. It's not like it has enough armour to be able to sit spotted, just blazing away and actually realising that 2,500 DPM. Because 180mm of turret and 210mm of effective frontal hull armour are not bad, but at tier 10, it's not good enough. So you do still have to play this thing like a light tank. Bullshit light tank armour is still light tank armour. In fact, even reasonable medium tank armour. Well, how many medium tanks do well by sitting in the open and blazing away and relying on their armour in a tier 10 battle? Exactly. And the other thing about the gun, and the other thing about that theoretical 2,500 damage per minute, is that first it relies on you sitting there and just shooting constantly, but it also relies on you hitting, penetrating and damaging the targets that you're shooting at. And 230mm of penetration at tier 10, unless they're giving you the best possible angle to shoot at, is generally just not going to cut it. See what he's doing here, by the way? I mean, he's deliberately getting himself spotted while hiding behind the chassis of these unfinished Hetzers. What he's trying to do, I think, is sucker these guys into coming back and reset the cap, and then run straight into the gun line behind him. But it doesn't look like... I mean, I appreciate the plan. It's a decent plan. It's just the enemy team don't appear to be in a position to comply with it. I mean, this is a spanking of monstrous proportions. The team have only lost 4 tanks and they've got 11 kills. Where do you think that S-tank went to? I think he's up there on the hill in those bushes. What do you think? Shall we go see? Quite content we'll allow the friendly Panzerwagen to go first, because even if he gets the spots, he's going to be the one either taking the hits or distracting them all, allowing him to get up here unmolested, shot into the... He's going to ram him. There you go. That's everything you need to know about just how bullshit this thing is. He just rammed an S-tank in a light tank, and the S-tank took more damage. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the T100 bullshit tank. It really is. And yet, at the same time, while it is true that the armour, the damage per minute, and the gun depression in particular on this thing are bullshit, you're still better off playing this thing as an actual light tank rather than trying to pretend that it's a sort of stripped down medium. Because while the tank's stats do compare quite favourably to some of the less well armoured tier 10 mediums, none of those less well armoured tier 10 mediums tend to do well by sitting in the open and blazing away and pretending that they're actually capable of taking hits. And the T100 LT, bullshit armour or no, is pretty much the same because it's tier 10, and tier 10 doesn't really give a shit about no 90mm of hull or 180mm of turret armour. So since you're going to have to camp the bushes anyway, you may as well play it like the light tank that it actually is. So with that established, and given that that's what he basically did anyway, because he's a Rorik and that's what he does, and given the competition that he was up against in this particular tier 10 battle here on the Pilsen map, with 5 other light tanks all competing for that juicy spotting damage, how well do you think he did? I mean, obviously he came first, because it's him, but by how much? Well, he finished quite comfortably ahead of the other 29 players on both teams as far as experience earned is concerned, and he also did 2,500 of his own damage, which is about double what he normally scores in his Manticore, because he tends not to actually use the gun on the Manticore too often, if he can possibly avoid it, preferring to allow the tank destroyers he's normally platooned up with, although in this case there was just the one, to farm the lion's share of the damage. Still, he did do 2,500 damage of his own, which is the most damage done of any of the other light tanks in this battle, although the friendly Rheinmetall Panzerwagen did come close. He was only 200 damage behind. But how about the stuff that matters when you're in a light tank? The stuff that you're supposed to be doing when you're in a light tank? How about the spotting? The other 5 light tanks in this battle combined spotted 5 enemies. Rorik spotted 6. And how about the spotting damage? How about the thing that, as a light tank, you're actually in the battle to do? Spot enemies so that your team can kill them. The combined spot and damage of all 5 other light tanks in this battle, friendly and enemy, was 3,941, or slightly less than half of the 8,178 that Rorik achieved on his own. With the 2,500 damage they did by himself, that's over 10,000 combined direct and assisted damage. To the likes of you and me, I feel fairly confident in saying that this might qualify as the best light tank battle I'd have ever played. To Auroric, it's just Thursday. And I, as ever, remain in awe of his light tank abilities. And I hope you all enjoyed watching him show it off again. Because that is it for today. Congratulations once again, Auroric. Always good to see your light tank replays. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.